Hey, man. Murdoch wrong again, man. I tell you what. Man, I tell you what, man. I'm having myself a vape, man. Whew. That is some good stuff, man. Sitting here vaping on my special pot, man. Because it's a special day. What's so special about today? Today, 4 years ago, I started vaping. I started vaping. I bought my first e-cigarette at a kiosk at the mall. I went on my lunch break. This guy came in to work one day and was like, "Check this out," and he said, I knew right away what it was because I had heard about him like a year prior. But he was like, "Check it out." I was like, "Oh, cool, man. Where'd you get this?" And he tells me, "Man, this kiosk down at the mall." That next day, man, I went and got me one. Paid $120 for it, and it was just this little battery. A little bit bigger than a cigarette. Tasted nasty. Um, but that's what it was back 4 years ago, man. Things have come a long way since then. But anyways, 4 years ago I started vaping, man. And and the reason I say I started vaping 4 years ago, and that's when I celebrate my vaporversary, is because I don't remember when I stopped smoking. I really don't. And that's kind of the point of this video. I wanted to point out. I wanted to show that vaping works. It works. Whatever you want to use it for, it works. I didn't even want to stop smoking. I didn't. I did not want to stop smoking. Did I want to maybe choose a healthier lifestyle? Yeah. Did I want to maybe avoid situations to where I shouldn't be smelling like smoke? Yeah. Um, and that's where I thought that vaping would work. I'd supplement that. Now, I dipped too, and I mostly dipped because, like I said, there's certain situations that I didn't need to be smelling like a cigarette, so I would dip in those situations. Um, but it works. And the first thing I noticed when I got my first e-cigarette and I started vaping it, the first day I was like, this might work. This might work. Now, there were some things that didn't work for me. Like the guy at the kiosk, the highest nick he sold was 18, and it wasn't cutting it for me. Because I just wasn't getting enough nicotine. Because I was used to having a dip in my mouth like all day long, and used to smoking on top of that. So it just wasn't working for me. I ended up having to go up to 36 milligrams per milliliter in order to keep my cravings down. And I was there for a good year before I even started coming down on my nip. And so it was one of those going from starting vaping to stopping smoking was so easy that I didn't even think about it. And slowly I started to reach for my vape instead of the cigarette. I just didn't even have to think about it. And then slowly I started not putting a dip in my mouth because I was getting enough nicotine. I just didn't think about it. A lot of it was habits, especially the dip, because it was just, I was certain points of the day I was used to putting a dip in my mouth. Get up in the morning, eat breakfast, put a dip in my mouth. That was my morning routine. But anyways, I started vaping, and I don't remember when I stopped smoking. So there's point number one. It's easy to stop smoking with vaping. Now, I understand some people have problems. Some people it's harder than others. I get that, But what's important is finding what works for you. Finding what works for you. And that's the great thing about vaping, especially now, is there's tons of different things out there. There's tons of different devices. There's tons of different setups. There's tons of different wicking materials. There's tons of different juices and flavors, and there's tons of stuff out there. And you got to find what works for you. That's what it boils down to. Now, a couple things that I wanted to point out along the way. Kind of things that I noticed that vaping works. Like I said, don't remember the day that I stopped smoking. I was in the military when I started smoking, or when I started smoking, when I started vaping. And you know how we have PT tests? Yeah, those are hard, man, when you smoke. They really are. But I tell you what, when I stopped smoking and started vaping, pretty much a month after I started vaping, shaved a minute off my run time. I didn't do anything extra as far as working out any more than I usually would, but I shaved a minute off my run time. And at the end of it, I wasn't chest tight and everything from my lungs hurting. So immediately, I was like, this is working. It's clearing out my lungs, man. It's working. I can breathe. I don't smell like cigarettes. You know? I can smell things. And that's another interesting thing, man. The first spring after I started vaping, I could smell spring, like in the air. I could smell it. I never smelled that before. Not that I can remember. I just never could smell it. And I was like, man, that is interesting. So your sense of smell comes back. Your taste comes back. Your breathing capacity comes back. Your energy comes back because you can breathe. You know? And then slowly, I got to the point that I was like, I can't stand the smell of cigarette smoke now. I just really cannot stand the smell of cigarette smoke. But in the whole process, I think the hardest thing to give up was dipping. The craving was always there. Cigarettes, I kind of could give those up easy, but it was because smoking was kind of just secondary. I mean, I had some pipes that I'd sit down and vape or smoke on a couple of times just to relax, but for the most part it was dipping all day long and then occasionally smoke. So smoking was easy for me to give up. The dipping was a little bit harder, but the transition was so smooth that it just worked. But there were certain times that the cravings would come. There's certain times that I'd find myself in a situation to where I would be out of habit almost buying a can of dip. You know, you go to the gas station, get an energy drink in the morning, get a coffee in the morning, whatever, you know, and be like, oh, let me get a can of that Skull Straight. And I caught myself a couple times doing that, and the lady turned around and went to go grab it, and I was like, wait, what am I doing? I don't need that. You know? But it wasn't until probably about 2 years in, you know, I started to avoid those situations. I stopped going to the gas station to get energy drinks. I started buying them in bulk, you know, so I had them, so I didn't have to go to the gas station to get energy drinks, you know. But one time I went into there, probably about close to my 2-year mark, year and a half, 2-year mark, and I went to the counter, and I saw the cans of dip, and I just laughed. I just laughed because I had no urge whatsoever to buy a can of dip. And at that point, I knew, I'm done. I am done with tobacco. Done. And I got vaping, man. And it's not going away. I'm always going to vape. Even if I get myself off nicotine, I'm still going to vape. Just because the flavors is so relaxing. And I have yet to really see any downside to it. 4 years now, it's kept me off tobacco. Slowly, I've lowered my nic. Like I said, I started at 36. I was there for a good year. And then I bumped down to 24, and then 20. And now I vape, for the most part, somewhere between 9, 12, and sometimes I'll hit 20. But, again, it's all about finding what works for you. And if you have any question about whether or not vaping works, try it. It's worth it. You will not regret it. You will not. Anyways, it's Murdoch Rome, man. I just wanted to make a video for my 4-year mark. 4-year anniversary of vaping. Anyways, you guys have a good day.